Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. Today we're going to do an unsleeving or unbagging of a very new arrival and very new release. This is A Greater Victory, South Mountain, September 14th, 1862. This is part of the American Civil War series from Revolution Games, which does not entirely overlap with the Blind Swords system by series designer Herman Luttman, but mostly it does. And this is a Blind Swords series game designed by Steve Carey, again from a series design by Herman Luttman. Now, there is a boxed version of this available. I elected to go with the Ziploc version because what I do with this particular series of games is I put them 3 at a time in these mailing boxes, which they fit into pretty comfortably, punched and clipped. So it didn't seem to me to be a good idea to break my streak with that. This is a very good series. I have played it before. If you'd like to see some gameplay, please do check out the videos in the channel for Thunder in the Ozarks, which is the Battle of Pea Ridge. Now, South Mountain is a battle that occurred over a couple of mountain passes in the lead up to Antietam. It's a battle I'm fairly familiar with. In fact, when I'm teaching great campaigns of the American Civil War, I usually use the South Mountain scenario out of Here Come the Rebels, or Here Come the Rebels 2. So it's a battle I'm familiar with, very excited to get this in. I ordered it as soon as I saw that it had become available. So let's take her out of the bag and take a look. Now, this is going to be the first game in the series in which the map is not a Rick Barber map. And the map here is done by Edmund Hudson, counters by Charlie Kibler. So it's going to be nice looking. I've already looked at the map online. It's not a Rick Barber map, but it is definitely inspired by Rick Barber's previous work, luminous previous work, the late, of course, Rick Barber. So we've got a cover sheet here, pretty handsome cover sheet, and on the back of that we have a display of the turn record track, the victory point track, and the broken track. When units break, they come here, and then they can gradually, if there's enough time, they can gradually make their way back to the battlefield if they are broken. Okay, so we're going to have a couple of displays here. There is a Confederate Brigade and Union Brigade activation display. These are, so as you can see, there's 2 Union corps here and 3 different Confederate divisions. Now, this is a regimental scale game. We'll take a look first at the counter since I've asked that question. So there are 2 counter sheets here, one of which is mostly Confederates and markers. A lot of blanks on here. This is not a huge battle, but it's an important one, and there's been a number of games on it already. Of course, the one that springs to mind immediately is the South Mountain game inside GMT's Twin Peaks. That's part of the Great Battles of the American Civil War system, but there's also an entry from the Gamers just called South Mountain. That's part of the regimental sub-series of the Civil War Brigade series, and I think it might have been the very last one before that series was transformed or updated into Line of Battle. All of these systems are systems that I like, by the way. So as you can see, there's color coding to show you which units belong to which higher level formations. That is very useful. This is a chit pull system, by the way. It plays very well solitaire. The chits in this system kind of feel like cards, which is why, like a larger and more elaborately produced game based on a very similar system, such as A Most Fearful Sacrifice, which was designed by Herman himself, actually just uses cards instead of the chits. So 2 counter sheets on a pretty thick brown core stock. These are also oversized. These look to be 5/8 inch counters to me. We have 2 of these player aids with the combat results table and a bunch of other handy tables on here. Pretty much the whole game runs off of this. And these tables, these are the tables used for cohesion tests. And right on here is the terrain key, so you don't have to go looking for what each terrain type does or looks like. It's right on the one player aid card that you need. Now, the other player aid card is going to be the one that contains the actual terrain effects chart. So that thing tells you what it looks like. These tell you what the movement costs and whether it blocks line of sight or not. This also has a sequence of play on it. We've got some artillery stacking and casualty tables to randomize that. Brigade orders. There is an orders system in here, and The backs of these are blank, and then we've got two more, which are going to be the descriptions of the event chits. So the Confederates will have their own event chits, and the Union will have their own event chits, but it looks like in this particular game, there is 100% overlap between the two. And you'll end up referring to these all the time. The backs of these are the unique events, it looks like. So there's 4 unique Union events and 4 unique Confederate events. And then these are the ones that look like they're shared. So 6 player aid cards, 3 for each player. You will end up referring to those fairly regularly. Let's set out the map and then take a look at the rule book. This is an unmounted map, as has been the case with every game in the Blind Swords system proper. I do want you to be able to take a look, kind of see what the map looks like. Because as I said, this is the first game in the series where the map was not done by the late Rick Barber. And it's definitely a Barber-esque art style, as I think, I'm sure that was intentional. Nevertheless, it looks pretty clear. There are some hexes in which I am going to have problems making out the hex numbers. Those are pretty much in this case at least, the hexes containing woods rather than the elevations. And you can see that these represent elevations. All right, so taking a look at the books, this is a pretty simple and easy to play system. This is Blind Swords Series Rules, version 1.0 2022. And it is a 16-page booklet with pretty minimal illustrations. Is it color? It is black and white, which is fine. I don't care. With, I'd say, larger than average wargame print size, but not hugely. It's a pretty clear rule system. I'm a little puzzled by 1.0 since this is like the 6th or 7th game in the series, and since there have actually been a couple of other Blind Swords games released by other companies, such as Tiny Battle Publishing. So this is the Blind Swords series proper, right? There is also a fork of Blind Swords called Black Swan, which is a system, very similar system used for Most Fearful Sacrifice, gigantic Kickstarter game that was done by Flying Pig Games, and by the much, much, much smaller The Devils to Pay, which is the First Day at Gettysburg with Buford and Heath, and much smaller game, and that is from Tiny Battle Publishing. So we've got 3 different publishers of Blind Swords just for the American Civil War, and then there is a Blind Swords game on the Franco-Prussian War, which is called At Any Cost Metz 1870. So this system is kind of covering a lot of ground from a number of different designers, but it's a very solid system. It's fun to play. You can see that the rulebook is pretty much all, except for the last page, and the first page, I guess, it's pretty much all rules, but it's 14 pages of rules, so it's pretty simple. We're going to have an exclusive rule book here. And this feels like 16 pages as well. This is on a shinier paper. They're both kind of satin finish paper, but this one's on a shinier paper for whatever reason. Then again, it could be that Revolution printed this in quantity for several different games where they printed this specifically for this game. Now this booklet is in full color, and it's going to have all of the game-specific stuff, of which there's a fair amount, it looks like, for this series. Looks like about 7 pages, and then we get to the scenarios. So we have Scenario 1, Carnival of Death. Scenario 2, Every Man Was a Hero. Scenario 3, The Battle for South Mountain. This is the entire day, beginning at 8 a.m. and ends at the end of the 7:30 p.m. turn. And that's probably the last scenario, I would think it is. And we've got some discussion and player's notes at the back. Here's an index for the exclusive rules. So, very nice little package. Honestly don't remember what it cost, but as a Ziploc game, it was not horrifically or ruinously expensive. This is a series that I like. It's, unfortunately for me, one of several different American Civil War series at this approximate scale that I do like. It would be a relief to my wallet were that not the case, and were I to be a fan of fewer of these games. But this is a nice little new entry in the series. A Greater Victory, South Mountain, September 14th, 1862. Again, designer Steve Carey. Herman Luttman is the series designer. Worth your time if you want to take a look at this. As of this filming, and there shouldn't be a long delay between the filming and the release in this particular case, this is still on the sort of debut sale that Revolution Games does, so you may want to check this out relatively soonish if you are interested. Good series. Can't wait to get more of these games from the Blind Swords system in the queue so that we could get them on the table. I'd like to give a thank you and shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, without whose support and assistance and continued patronage, it would be much, much more difficult to produce this and all the other types of content we do here. So thank you, patrons, and thank you for watching. Until next time, happy wargaming.